Hello, everyone. Welcome to our new episode of Refugee Voices. And today we're bringing on Oasis Legal Services. We have Mateo and Caroline. You guys want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'll go first. My name is Mateo Sanchez, and I work at Oasis Legal Services as the Development and Grants Coordinator. Um, yeah, I've been with Oasis for about a year, but just a little bit about my background is I come from a family of immigrants. I identify as part of the LGBTQ plus community. I actually worked in supporting asylum seekers as a legal advocate for about 5 years before for a different organization before joining Oasis. And now at Oasis, I'm sort of the storyteller where I take the work that we do and talk to our funders about it and talk to our communities about it. And I also support with like our communications, like newsletters, social media, blog posts, and things like that. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Wonderful.
And Caroline?
My name is Caroline Cornfield Roberts, and I am one of the co founders of Oasis and our special projects director at the moment. I have worked with refugees since I was in high school, and it has been a cause that's been very dear to my heart. My ancestors fled the Russian pogroms a long time ago, and I after starting Oasis, have worked on a number of things. I've been an attorney at Oasis, and then been on the leadership team and work on projects with pro bono attorneys, helping to train and mentor them, and work on fundraising projects as well. So I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, we're really glad to have you on. We hear so many stories about refugees fleeing their countries due to religious persecution or political reasons, but we don't hear so much about them fleeing due to their sexuality, their sexual orientation. Could you explain a little bit about what specific challenges and issues do LGBTQ plus refugees and immigrants and asylum seekers face that prompted the creation of your organization?
Absolutely. So, queer and trans immigrants often flee life threatening violence from around the world. There are over 80 countries where it's either illegal or basically de facto illegal to be a member of the LGBTQ plus community. And people flee with no other choice, and it's a really hard journey to come to the U.S. And then once they're in the U.S., it can be challenging to find support. It can be challenging to find community. And Oasis co-founder Maria Elena Paniagua began working with LGBTQ plus asylum seekers in 2005. And through word of mouth referrals, she witnessed the number of clients increase dramatically. At first, she had just a handful of clients. And then year after year, by the end, she had hundreds of clients every year who needed services and came to her for support. And unfortunately, the organizations where Maria Elena and the other Oasis co-founders and I worked were unable to keep up with the demand. There just was not the resources to serve the number of clients that were coming. And we were forced to refer out many clients who would have been eligible for asylum to private attorneys, to other nonprofits. But there was really nowhere that was serving the unique needs of the queer and trans community. And most legal providers didn't have the capacity to absorb the cases. They didn't have the cultural competency to serve the clients in a culturally affirming and supportive way. And private attorneys often charged thousands and thousands of dollars, which was totally out of reach for most people. And because of these very strict filing deadlines in asylum, this meant that a lot of the people who we were not able to serve were losing a chance at gaining asylum forever, possibly. And so, in addition to myself and the other Oasis co founders, we were also concerned about how legal services were often delivered in a silo without taking this more holistic approach to supporting clients. And our clients would often be facing unsafe or unstable housing, food insecurity, lack of medical or mental health care. And as an attorney, we had no resources to support our clients. with these really urgent needs, and that made it really difficult for them to work on their cases when these needs weren't met. And so we came together and we decided, there's this unmet need within the community, really on the entire West Coast. And we decided to create Oasis out of the belief that really we wanted to empower our clients with a whole person view. And so now Oasis provides wraparound case management, warm referral pipelines, collaborative support networks. We ensure caseworkers are fully equipped to empower their clients in whatever way their clients need and address their urgent needs and move them towards long-term well-being in whatever ways they ask for support with. And because we serve such a large number of LGBTQ immigrants, we also identify issues and trends that others don't see. And so we also use that as part of a broader ecosystem of people within the community to advocate, to train other service providers, and to generally expand capacity within the community.
And I know that treating such a group of people is very difficult, and it comes with a lot of challenges. So, do you want to talk about your initial challenges of getting clients to open up and join the organization, and also, participate in the programs that you guys have, and just the early stages of what you guys had?
Yeah. In the first years of Oasis, we had a really small staff, and we were kind of constantly juggling casework and also responding at the time to various executive orders and administrative policy changes from the Trump administration, and travel bans to executive orders that attempted to end DACA, ending temporary protective status, limiting which types of asylum applications qualified. And we were regularly having to update clients, file regulatory comments, sign amicus briefs. And then, of course, as with any startups, funding was initially challenging. And we had a couple times where we thought, oh my gosh, are we going to make payroll? I don't know. But we had, an incredible community who really saw how important the work that we were doing was, and came together and gave us that stopgap funding. And we now have 17 employees working in our Berkeley and Fresno office, and we're, doing things on the regional and national level, which is amazing growth. But in terms of initially reaching out to the community, one of the amazing things about Oasis from the very beginning was the response. And when we opened our doors and we told our former clients about what we were creating and our vision, we had 300 individuals that said that they wanted to bring their cases with us, which we did. And because our co-founders had, this reputation within the community and this trust that had been built, we had word of mouth referrals coming in because of that all the time. And we had a long wait list from day one. And that momentum has continued, and we've intentionally built a board of directors and staff who reflect the identities and the lived experiences of our clients, who have multiple language capacities. We have multiple stages where we solicit client feedback so we can really respond to community needs. We continue to build partnerships and collaboratives within the LGBTQ+, the immigrant communities. And we've built more and more pathways for clients to access our services and to give us feedback about our services as well.
Right, that sounds great, and I think it's a really great, unique and important thing that your organization does. Could you describe a little bit about where the vast majority of these LGBTQ plus refugees are arriving from, and sort of what their initial mental health and um, psychological state is? Because I'm sure that refugees always have lots of trauma behind it due to their, very very difficult journey. And I'm sure, being a part of the LGBTQ plus community, they also receive lots of, discrimination. And so could you describe a little bit about their mental well-being?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. So, yeah, like Caroline mentioned, it is illegal or extremely unsafe to be part of these communities in over 80 countries. We at Oasis have represented individuals from 68 different countries at least. So that just tells you, unfortunately, um, the state of things, and how these communities are treated in their countries of origin, unfortunately, and why they have to flee for their safety and often for their lives. All of our clients have faced very severe and violent persecution that takes the form of physical violence, psychological violence, often sexual violence. And because of that, they are carrying a lot of trauma, sometimes physical consequences of the violence that they faced, as well as mental health issues. A lot of clients have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety. A lot of the time that is also an impediment to them being able to find support here in the United States, because a lot of the persecution that they face has been not just at the hands of their families and people in their communities that should have supported them, but sometimes even the authorities themselves, the government, the police. Um, yeah, and so because of all of these things, and dealing with these consequences um, of their experiences. And that's why it's so important at Oasis that we incorporate, on top of our direct legal immigration services that we provide, which is asylum, mostly, then green card, then citizenship, but we also understand the importance of incorporating social services support and navigation for these clients, because we understand that it's not just the need to apply for asylum, but even if you get asylum and if you don't have the support to deal with these other challenges that you're facing, asylum is not enough. And then on the other hand, too, providing mental health support, providing medical care and things like that will also prepare our clients more fully to be able to work on their cases, and obtain asylum. So those are some of the things that we see, and it is really difficult, and that's why it requires a level of care and cultural competency to work with these populations, to because we know how to talk to our clients, we understand, and we approach it with a tact that not everybody has.
So once a client is interested in your services and they contact you guys, how long does it usually the process take from like the beginning to once they achieve asylum?
Um, yeah, do you want to take this, Carolyn?
Um, so unfortunately, at the moment, because of the lack of resources in the immigration services, there's not sufficient asylum officers to have hearings for most people who apply for asylum. And so there are backlogs, basically waiting lists of people who have applied for asylum and who have not had their cases heard yet. And that could be a year, but it could be 10 years. We have clients from as far back as 2015 at the moment, who have still not had
Mhm.
their cases heard, unfortunately. And this is
Wow.
just a clear, sign that the system is not working as it's supposed to work. Fortunately, once you apply for asylum, it is possible to get work authorization, a social security number, and kind of start to have some of those resources that are really important. But having that kind of knowing that's going to happen at some point, you're hearing, having that hanging over your head, it's really, really hard. And so we try to support clients through that wait. But it can take a very long time. And then once somebody is granted asylum, shortly after their asylum interview, a year later they can apply for residency, and 4 years after that they can apply for citizenship. And once they have residency, they can also, or once they have asylum, they can also apply for family members, which is a really important stage too for many of our clients.
Right. So a lack of resources and a lack of funding seems to be a common theme in uh, every refugee support organization that we've worked with. And even for us, it's been a problem. Um, what do you think are some ways that the broader community, including individuals and other nonprofit organizations, even those that are not specifically tailored towards serving refugees, can do to support our mission and contribute to making a positive impact?
Yeah, I think, well, the important thing to realize is that LGBTQ plus immigrants are part of other communities, and so although nonprofits might be working on serving their specific demographic, I think naturally, like all of these good things that everybody is doing will benefit everybody, including, LGBTQ plus immigrants. But I think some of the ways that people can become involved and make a positive change is by spreading awareness, by learning, becoming educated about the different challenges that communities face, providing a platform, sort of like you all are doing, and hearing from all of these different perspectives and people from different walks of life to really spread the important information. I think yeah, well, actually, that's the main thing that I would recommend is becoming informed and actively seeking out these perspectives and becoming informed. And it's really hard often to keep track of everything, but at least making an effort to make sure that you're not, um, yeah, just making an effort, I think, to speak to different people.
Yeah, and
And
sorry, go
well,
ahead. You can go ahead.
okay. And in your experience, have you found that um, gathering funding and support for LGBTQ plus refugees is often harder than gathering support for other refugees? Because even in countries that, like America, for example, that do have free laws for everyone, there's still growing discrimination against this community.
Yeah, I don't know if it's harder or not. I think in general, asking for money or it's hard, and sometimes people want to the people with the money want to make sure that their money is going to the right cause or the cause that they want to support. So I think maybe it is a challenge to try to frame things in the most impactful ways and describe, yeah, the challenges. So, for example, here in California and specifically the Bay Area, there are, like LGBTQ plus centers. There's this kind of idea that it's sort of a safe haven for these communities. For immigrants as well. And so really talking about the challenges that they face, even here, it's sometimes something that people aren't aware of. So again, elevating those perspectives and making sure that, I mean, we have the narratives from our clients, the statistics that show um, how impactful getting asylum is for people to have stability in housing and employment and things like that. And so making sure to speak to that. But yeah, it's really interesting, and it's definitely having to navigate that. And even in California, it ranges. We have an office here in Berkeley, and then we also have one in the Central Valley. And the experiences of people in these different regions varies, even though, the Central Valley is only a few hours from the Bay Area. And so really speaking to all of that and making sure that perspectives are represented is, I think, what has helped. But it is a challenge, I think, like, yeah, I think just requesting funding and securing it can be a challenge, though not impossible.
Right.
If I may also
And you
add,
mentioned, go ahead, go on.
there's over 300,000 undocumented LGBTQ plus immigrants in the United States and over 60,000 in California. And
Wow.
we have the capacity to serve a good amount of people, but obviously that's a lot of people, and it needs more funding, it needs more attention. And I think one of the things that's particularly compelling is that we win 99% of the cases that we work on, and this is a combination of factors. Part of that is the expertise that our staff has built over many years, and part of it is the care and attention and this kind of whole person model that we have, but also the really horrible part of it is because of the level of persecution and the things that our clients have gone through. It makes their cases really strong. and that's the horrible factor in that. But it does reflect, and I think for funders, they often do see, fortunately, the impact that these services can have. And it's not a lot of money to support one of these cases, but when we can get that money, when we can really communicate the impact that our work is having, people see, okay, wow, this is really going to make such an incredible difference in somebody's life.
Yeah, definitely. And I I wanted to point back to like when you mentioned the the various like experiences that clients come to you with, and one thing I want to also share to the viewers is something that comes to mind when you think of clients that you helped the most significantly, and some big impact stories that you can think of. So, do you have any that you would like to share?
Um, sorry, Caroline, you can share also since you've been working there longer. But actually, something that was really cool is that, like Caroline mentioned, sometimes it takes years for people to obtain their asylum. But we just recently had a client who has been with Oasis since the beginning, since 2017 when Oasis was founded. And just this year, we filed his citizenship. And so you can really see kind of like the whole like journey and what it takes. And within that, like people experience their ups and downs like we all do. But just to kind of see yeah, just both the journey of Oasis and people that have been with us for so long. And I think it's also really compelling the fact that we do not just asylum, but these continuity programs like permanent residency and then eventually citizenship because it takes a long time for people to trust institutions and knowing that they can work with the same team that they've come to trust throughout this whole time and throughout the time that it takes for them to obtain all of these different forms of immigration relief is just really great. And it's not a model that really exists so much specifically for this demographic. So that's been really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely would echo that, everything Mateo said. And I think, I can think of so many clients that I've worked with over the years, and seeing that kind of progression from intake to asylum to residencies to citizenship and reuniting families is is incredibly moving. And I think, I can think of a client, for example, who had a graduate degree in his home country, and came to the United States and was in the closet and was working at a McDonald's and was having a hard time, couldn't really pay his bills, had multiple roommates, came and met with us, and we said, we can support you to go through this process, and went through the process with him, and immediately just started an incredible career and is now pretty high up at a Silicon Valley tech company and just thriving. But we have other clients too who just have an incredible passion for giving back to the community and really building that community. And so we have other clients who go through the process with us and then decide to work for major human rights organizations or get into various community service projects. It's just the incredible. We're having a fundraiser this fall and showcasing all of the amazing talents of our community, because it's really incredible. You can't even just think of one story or one trajectory because of all of the different ways that our clients come and just thrive in our communities and are able to get that, whether it's okay, I need the HIV medication, and then they can, move on with their lives in that way, or the surgery that, wasn't available when they were undocumented, or, enrolling kids in a better school, or whatever it is. It opens so many doors, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah,
So,
and then
oh, sorry, go
yeah.
on.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna add something else, just because there's a lot of misconceptions about immigrants and asylum seekers, how they need to be supported, and how and I don't think that people are defined by their contributions, but it is very true. Like a lot of our clients like were activists in their countries of origin, and that's precisely why they had to flee, because they were such a big target for like in their communities, and the government persecuting them, and that's such a terrible, situation to be in, where you're a leader in the community and then you have to flee because of all this violence and hatred that exists. But then, luckily, once they're here, and if they're given the opportunity, then um, like a lot of our clients are activists still in this community now, and leading other organizations, which is actually really cool to see. Or people who maybe were not activists, but now are able to be themselves here, and are given that opportunity again to now become activists here. It's really, yeah, it's really great to see.
Right. No, it's definitely it's a very inspiring thing that your organization is doing. And clearly you've served so many refugees and asylum seekers in California. And your organization has definitely made a huge impact. Can you discuss any um, initiatives or projects that you're planning on doing from here? Like what's next for Oasis? Are you guys planning on expanding to other states, or maybe in helping a different group alongside LGBTQ plus refugees?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, as an established but growing organization, we're constantly thinking about like what's next, what more can we do? And so one of our expanding branches is our training and advocacy branch, where we have all of this information from our clients' experiences, right? And we use that to inform, policies, and participate in groups where we can speak to the specific experiences of our clients. And then we also train other service providers who want to know how to better serve, for example, immigrant or LGBTQ plus communities, in a culturally responsive way. And so we're formalizing that, and figuring out the process, and expanding capacity to be able to respond to all of the requests for training, and support in that way, and figure out our role in legal advocacy as part of a larger ecosystem, which Caroline mentioned earlier, and how we fit with like broader social movements, and systemic change. So that's something that's underway, as well as centering our clients, and getting clients involved in this advocacy. Like I mentioned, a lot of them have experiences doing so or want to be involved. And so, how do we, as Oasis, provide a platform for them to be able to do that? Um, and then the other thing that we're working on, and when you mentioned serving other populations, this is kind of a project to do this a little bit differently. So historically, we've only been able to focus on affirmative asylum applications, which means individuals who are not in removal proceedings, have never been in immigration detention, but they are actively, proactively seeking asylum. And so that's where our efforts have been going. However, that leaves out a large portion of the population, of people who do have court cases and who are in removal proceedings, and then have to file their cases in a defensive way to avoid being deported back to their countries. These cases, and the reason why it's really has been difficult to do them, is because they can often be unpredictable. Sometimes the timeline for these cases is really fast, and because of lack of funding, we haven't been able to take on these cases, of which we get a lot of calls from people in that situation. So thanks to some recent funding, now we will be able to hire somebody that specifically will be able to focus on these cases and take on cases with approaching deadlines and in these situations. So still LGBTQ plus immigrants, but those who are in a different and precarious situation.
Yeah, and I would just add as well, since I don't, you have a broad audience on your wonderful podcast, that we also have a portal on our website where attorneys around the country can ask for support. So if, you're in Alabama or you're in Texas or you're in wherever you are and you're seeking asylum and you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, and maybe your attorney has never done a case like that before and wants support looking up the country conditions from your country to support your case, or what is the case law in my area around asylum for LGBTQ plus community members, we provide that support. We partner with the Center for Gender and Refugee Studies in San Francisco and try to make sure that those resources are out there.
Right, that sounds great, and I think that's definitely a very useful step that your organization is taking next. One last question I have, something that we're trying to discuss more on our podcasts and talk about more with our viewers and really learn more about is the political aspect of concerning refugees and asylum seekers, because obviously it's a very political issue. So, what do you think? Could you explain some policies or things that the government can do to better help and support the refugees coming in? Or are there some policies that are in place right now that you guys are particularly supportive of or that you're against?
Um, that is a very broad, there's so much there. I mean, honestly, in terms of what can be done, having more support to make sure that individuals who are seeking asylum have the representation, they have access to the resources, understanding of how to go through the process, that more resources are allocated to have, all of the officers around the country trained on how to hear these cases, and cultural competency in terms of addressing asylum seekers, about understanding the things that our clients have been facing, reducing the wait times to go through this process because of how hard it is to wait that long. In terms of there's so many policies right now that are limiting asylum seekers' ability to apply for asylum, which it's horrible. It goes against our commitment under international law. It goes against our morality as a nation. The most recent kind of closing of the border in these ways that the Biden administration did, where it's only open for certain periods of time depending on how many people are crossing, is incredibly arbitrary, and it's preventing people who have really legitimate fear and really legitimate needs from getting that help that they need and that they should be able to claim under international law. So we hope that that is something that will be turned around soon, and just generally a more streamlined, better trained, better resource system, so that we can really support the people that are fleeing this really critical danger.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that there's a major lack of access to the system and to applying for asylum, for example. Not only are most immigrants or many immigrants like don't speak the language, but they don't understand the laws and how to access these things. And so that makes it extremely difficult, even for people here in the United States. The government is moving towards making everything digital, and applying for applications online rather than filing by mail, which has historically been the case. And so that is difficult for somebody potentially who doesn't know how to use the internet or access these systems, who doesn't have an email address and things like that. And so I think there's a huge disconnect between the government's, I don't know if it's understanding or just the systems that they have in place versus the people who need to be able to access them. And so that's a huge disparity, and it's really unfortunate. And that's why it results in people mostly who have attorneys, and a good one at that, to be able to file for asylum versus somebody who doesn't. And not to mention even just the situations at the border and people in detention centers, and how that disproportionately also affects LGBTQ plus people, or people with HIV who don't have access to their medication, and who are subjected to horrible treatment while in detention. Yeah.
Right, and I'm sure 90 to 95% of asylum seekers don't have the resources to get that like attorney and to get that extra help that they need to cross over. So Volab, do you have any other questions?
No, I mean, is there any other comments from you two?
No,
Well,
it
then
just
thank you guys so much. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to thank you. It's really wonderful that you're elevating all of these stories and voices and having these conversations. We really appreciate it.
Right, of
Yeah,
course, and we're happy to have you guys anytime. This really is such an important topic that isn't talked about enough, and I'm sure this has been a very informative episode for our viewers at home as well. And yeah, we'd love to get you on anytime. Thank you for our viewers for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.
thank you.